my name is Maurice. I work with Bendic Mobile as a data scientist. And today I'll be starting us off on a use of geospatial data for micro planning. Yeah, so this presentation mainly focuses on the aspect of how we could be able to use geospatial data, not just within CHT itself as an app, but even programmatically to be able to better provide care as CHWs do in the community. And this initiative, we partnered with PIH, that's Partners in Health in Malawi, and OpenStreetMap team, the regional office mapping team based in Nairobi. Yeah, so what we wanted to achieve with this initiative was just trying to understand better ways that we could use geospatial data to improve care by community health workers. And we started off with identifying a few questions that we would want to answer by the end of the initiative. One was how we could improve on the quality of the data, especially geospatial data to support decision making. How we could use that data to improve on efficiency. How we could use it to also ensure that as CHWs provide care, we are able to achieve universal health coverage, and that there's also equity on how primary health care is provided, and also how we could use the data to support program managers in decision making, as well as using the data at the end of it to develop CHW registries. And as indicated on the right side, this involved layering on multiple layers of geospatial data, like the terrain, road networks, administrative, settlement, and also how CHWs are distributed, as well as facilities, and then layering on the way that they provide care. We also looked at different ways in which we could integrate geospatial data use across the different key players in the CHW program. This includes the CHWs themselves, their supervisors, as well as the program managers, and the different ways that we could use the data and how that applies across the different users. So the way we approached it was one, we started by exploring the data that we had, and this involved looking at the quality and availability of data, and then also exploring different documentation on geospatial data use, which was really helpful in identifying ways that we could use geospatial data. And as mentioned, we worked with the Partners in Health. After assessing the quality of the data, we embarked on trying to remap households, and then with that, sourcing data from other sources that we could then compare to see how the data, how the different sources of data compare, and then cleaning data, and then also exploring partnerships that could help us improve on the quality of the data and completeness. And that's where the OpenStreetMap team came in. One, by ensuring that they were able to get road network, also other data. And then from there, the next step was moving now on to trying ways that we could use the geospatial data. And on your right, this was just an example of how some results that we observed when we compared how data was, the quality of the data is. In most cases, we capture geospatial data in the background. What we tried with this partner was we tried to do an active involvement of the CHWs in the data capture, and we compared how the data points look like, and we realized quite some difference in the data points because the data was within the same form, and there was quite some variance, and the data that was captured in the background wasn't as reliable as the data that was captured with the involvement of the CHWs. Here is where a CHW is prompted to actually collect the data, while the one in the background is basically what the CHT captures from the phone memory. Yeah, not all points were close by each other. As you can see, there are some points that were even more than 100 meters apart. Yeah, so what we did once we were able to get more data with the once we got more data, we layered on the road network, the CHW households, their household locations, and we were able to generate some CHWs clusters. Yeah, so the map on the extreme right just shows some clusters that we were able to achieve based on the CHW's data, their household locations, and how we allocated the households to them. With this, we would be able to ensure that CHWs are allocated to clusters that are closest to them, as compared to how we currently do household allocation in most of the deployments. And it's something that still needs a refinement. Yeah, and we're also able to come up with some mock-ups in different ways that we could explore integrating this geospatial data within CHT. These are just mock-ups, ideas that might need refinement before actual deployment or actual production or integration into production. One could be sorting households, sorting contacts by distance from where the CHW is. The other one would be sorting tasks by priority, agency, and also distance to ensure that households or tasks that are closer by the CHW could be able to identify them and address them first. And the other one was visualizing all households that the CHW has, and then being able to pick households that to pick and plan based on areas that have households which need more urgent attention. It could be via tasks, or also the time that it's been since they last had their visit. So these are some of the challenges that we faced or we identified in all this work. One was the quality of the data wasn't that reliable, and also not really all CHWs were able to collect geospatial data, because in most cases CHWs disable location. And especially when we collect the data in the background, we're not able to get, they're not able to know that this data is being collected. Then we also realized that there's very limited use on geospatial data to support health workers. And the other thing is the poor mobile network coverage, as well as the charging facilities in some of the locations that CHWs work in, is a hindrance in that CHWs disable GPS because it tends to drain batteries more. And in some cases, some devices use a GPS, which needs a mobile network for them to improve on the accuracy. And finally, some of the phones that CHWs use are low end, and they tend to have challenges with the capture of a GPS. Next, we would want to try this out with other partners, or refine this further, even with the current partners that we work with, and others who would want to try using geospatial data. Thanks.
There's a question on chat asking whether there was any incentive provided to the community health worker. That could be in terms of credit. I'm assuming that's airtime.
Not really, because this wasn't an extra workload, but more of an integration into their day-to-day activities. So CHWs would be, as they visit households, would be asked to capture the GPS location of the household.
I'm excited to share some of our recent work with you. Just move right along here. First up is our work to make it easier for health workers to learn and use the CHT. So over the last several releases, most of you know, we've been aligning the CHT user interface with the Android material design patterns. This really gives CHWs a more familiar experience in the CHT because it looks and behaves like other apps on their phones. So in the last couple releases, you've heard us talk about updates to things like the way search works and filters, secondary actions. Probably have seen that we moved these primary actions to that big blue floating action button. And we've also improved the modal dialogues. We just finished the work on updating targets to align with Android's material design, the card component. So you can see a little example of what we're talking about there. This isn't a huge major design change, but it does help keep a consistent look and feel across all their apps. So yeah, it was just the next phase in here, and you can kind of read a little bit more about that in that forum post there. So this, like I said, this is planned to be in 4.5, which is, it's not out yet, but that's where we expect it to show up. Next up, wanted to highlight a few other things that we've completed and are also scheduled to be in 4.5. So for those who aren't aware, the CHT collects performance and interaction data on certain user actions. It's called telemetry data, and it gets aggregated each day and then replicated to the server. So it all happens on their devices and then gets replicated to the server. The telemetry data can be used to evaluate the performance of code and configuration and to evaluate where improvements can be made. This capability of recording telemetry data has been around for a long time. It's been in the CHT since the early days. But there was a bug whereby some of the telemetry data was not being recorded. Well, telemetry data was not being recorded every day. So it was missing on some days. That has now been fixed. And in addition, we've also improved this telemetry system by including this performance data for contacts forms as well. Previously, from a form perspective, it was only recording for app forms, and we've added the ability to have telemetry data in contact forms as well. Just a quick side note on telemetry, we will be hosting a webinar in December to do a deeper dive into what telemetry is and how you can access it and how do you interpret it, and also give you some pointers on how to sort of engage with it through queries and stuff like that. So we'll be sending some more information about that out later, but yeah, just wanted to put that on your radar for now. There are a couple other bug fixes that I just wanted to highlight that have been completed and will be in 4.5 also. One of these fixes relates to how long text is rendered in some Enketo forms. So it was kind of like rapid, or it was like shifting down and some of these things. We fixed that. So we always want to make sure that the user interface is really clear for the health workers. So that was one fix. There's another one related to basically how the edit function for forms. So there was a bug where users were unable to edit forms that they created. We've fixed that bug as well. So those are a couple fixes that are going to be in 4.5. And let's see what we got here next. Okay, so another thing that we've been working on, we've been working closely with our research team, is to make it easier for nurses to identify and find patients in the CHT by allowing them to scan a barcode when they're doing searches. So in Malawi, for example, patients have a health passport, and it has a unique barcode identifier on that health passport. So the CHT has had the ability to scan barcodes into forms for quite some time, but it did not have the ability to actually search for patients using that barcode. So we're working on that feature right now, and we have a little demo here. So let's hope that I'm just going to slow this down a little bit. So here we go. You'll go on the contacts tab here. You'll notice that there is a new little icon, a little QR code icon here. And in mobile, you'd be able to tap on that and basically take a picture with your camera. And the CHT will interpret that. It'll automatically enter that into the search bar up here. And then basically, yeah, you can see it'll take you directly to this, the person. It basically behaves just like a normal search would, but it enters in the barcode. It interprets the barcode and enters that as the search term here. So this is something we're not done with just yet, but it is something that we're working on. And yeah, we know that there's been some other interest in barcode scanning from a couple other projects as well. And this is where we're at with that right now. And if there are others that would be interested in trying this out, let us know. We'd love to work with you. This is going to be really awesome also because, you know, from a interoperability perspective, having these unique identifiers in the CHT is really going to be very beneficial for patient matching and stuff like that. So anyway, that's a quick update on some of the care team's work. Before I move on, are there any questions there?
We wanted to share a summary of our Q3 user research activities. We can go to the next slide. So under care teams, we managed to conduct 5 generative interviews with the CHWs. And some of the things that we had, we continued to hear that the app takes a long time to load. And then we also heard that the UI is difficult to navigate. Then there was also another insight on configuration doesn't support service delivery needs. So where the screenshot on my right, the yellow stickies shows the new findings or the raw nuggets that we had for this quarter. So just speaking directly from what we had from the users, some of the things they reported here included taking long to sync data. There was also app sometimes takes too long to load. Then there was the other one was some CHAs or some community health assistants have challenges logging into the app, and it can take a whole day. So these are just a sample of some of the things that we had under the insight that the app takes a long time to load. So just also going through some of other things that we had on this insight that the UI is difficult to navigate. We had a couple of new nuggets under UX struggles category, whereby some of the things, if I can go through them, again, the yellow stickies shows or indicates the new findings that we gathered in Q3. Some of them included that the phone number field doesn't allow the CHV to register a number that is shared. We also had a VHT struggle. We observed that a VHT struggled to indicate baby's date of birth in months. And so scrolling through the calendar was a challenge. Another new finding or any new insight that we had is that there's a challenge replacing a household head who has died with another new household member. So just picking a sample of some of those things that we had. So again, under care teams, we also had emerging themes that we haven't heard about before during our interviews, generative interviews with CHWs. So issues to do with supervision, client accessibility, hardware, and CHW goals arose, or we got to hear about it for the first time. So we also had other generative activities under the allies teams. Here we conducted interviews with app developers majorly. So again, just something what we had. Our topmost continue to be, it's difficult to find and make sense of errors when setting up the CHT. And then another thing that we had, it's difficult for app developers to understand key concepts in CHT. So again, the screenshot on my right, the yellow stickies indicate the new nuggets that we had for that quarter. We had some of the things that we have that the app is very slow at every start of the month. So we had issues to do with timeouts. Then we also had issues to do with data synchronization, which was somehow related to what we had when we talked to the CHWs. So expounding again further on one of the insights, that is, it's difficult for app developers to understand key concepts in CHT. We had also a number of new issues, the ones in yellow. So there were issues to do with insufficient documentation. Then some of which some included no proper documentation for window users when they are trying to set up Postgres. And then there was issues also to do with the setup guide that is in docs. It felt like it was designed for people using Linux. So just sampling again what we have here. Then there was also another new nugget about learning curve for the CHT was crazy. That's one of the people that we talked to who gave us that feedback. So Again, under allies, we had an emerging theme that we haven't had before on architecture. And also, additionally, we, as you have seen, we had a representation from care teams and allies teams. We also had ecosystem and infrastructure focused working groups. We also conducted some interviews with some app developers, data scientists, and DevOps. So we haven't managed to synthesize that information yet, or the findings yet. But when we are done, we are going to share them in due course. That's all from my end, not unless there are any questions for me.
So I'm just going to take everyone through some more recent user research activities that we've been doing with the care teams. So the care teams took a trip to Kenya and Uganda last month, where we got to speak to over 80 CHWs across both countries. And we conducted several activities, like some user interviews, where we just wanted to hear more about how users plan their work, what type of errors they're making, and just how they go about fixing and dealing with those. And just a lot more around their goals and their experience with the app, as well as security of the app. In addition, we also got to do some household visits, a customer effort score survey, and some usability testing on the new UI changes. Going into the next slide, just to highlight a few things that we heard from the user interviews. So we also got to learn that beyond the task list, a lot of CHWs also plan their work based on which tasks they deem to be more urgent. So just beyond following the order of the tasks in the app, they skim through and just pick out the ones that they seem to be more urgent, and they prioritize those cases. In addition to this, we also heard about how a lot of CHWs are using external tools like notebooks to keep track of other information, such as which households they've been visiting, which ones they may have missed because of some personal schedules, and also just keeping track of patients who may not be registered in the application for some reason. And there's so much more that we heard from the CHWs from here, and we'll be able to share those insights with you all soon on the forum. Getting into the customer effort score survey on the next slide. The aim of this survey was to learn about how easy or difficult it is for CHWs to complete the various tasks that they perform in the application. So we had a total of about 78 responses across all of the partners. And it was good to see that it was synonymous across all of the locations, that it's quite easy for CHWs to perform most of their everyday tasks, like registering new households, finding the tasks which they want to do next, or finding the households that they're looking for. And some of the more low-scored tasks for this were around correcting mistakes for some of the CHWs that we spoke to with the MOH Kenya team, and also about learning about new changes in their app for other CHWs that we also spoke to. And then the other activity that we finally conducted was the usability test, and those outcomes are in the next slide. So for this, we presented the screens of the new navigation, and you can see what that looks like in the forum post that I just pasted in the chat. So with this, we just presented the new screens of the new navigation, which is also something that we're doing to align the designs more closely with the material design standards that Michael spoke about earlier. And we presented this to the CHWs and just prompted them to interact with the app in the same way that they would with the current one. So we asked them various questions around how they navigate the app, whether they're able to recognize which page they're on, and how they can also perform different actions such as synchronizing. So there was a very high percentage of about 78 CHWs who were able to navigate the app on the first try. And then navigating the app in this case is just switching between the different pages to find the different actions that they perform in the app. And then when we showed the rest how they can do this, there was about 96% of them who were able to now navigate the app on their own in the second try. Similarly, about 92% of the CHWs were able to know which page they're on the first try. And then this changed to 100% after showing the rest. They were also able to recognize the different pages on their own in the second try. So we also asked them which UI they prefer, and 75% of the users said that they found the experience to be the same across the current and the new UI. Some stated that the only difference that they're actually noticing is that the new UI looks a little bit more modern and like some of the current existing apps, which is good to hear. And on the other hand, we had about an equal 12.5% that stated that they preferred the current or new version of the UI. So those that stated that they prefer the current version, mostly they said that it's because they've gotten accustomed to this new UI, but they'll be willing to learn and get accustomed to the new one as well. So we also got to hear about how some felt about the new UI, and they stated that they felt that the new UI made their path shorter, and some pointed out that the new menu drawer made it easier for them to go back to different other tabs from the menu drawer as well. So again, more insights on this will be shared in the forum, so please be on the lookout for that. Finally, in the next slide, I just want to give a shout out to the partners that helped make this happen. We did all of this together with the Living Goods team, the MOH Kenya team in Kenya, and then the MOH Uganda team. So shout out to all of you. Thank you for everything.
So here we have an ecosystem update. I'll be sharing these updates. So for what we've been working on currently is on having some reliable dashboards. What you see on the right that is highlighted is where most of the where most of the work is. That's on modeling the data to a form where a dashboard that could be Superset or whichever dashboard is able to pick out this data and transform it to a sort of a widget or in form of chart that you want, depending on the requirements that you have. So what we've been doing is having a proof of concept in the real world. We have our deployment that we are working on. So there's a test instance for that. We'll be sharing our learnings on that. That's documenting how we went about it and what you can actually do just to have your own instance with the CHT sync configuration, so that you can have more reliable dashboards as opposed to couch to PG, this is an alternative too. So we are also doing some data audits just for completeness, just ensuring that what is being copied over from the different dashboards is the same. And what we are really excited about is moving to deploying, is probably in the next couple of weeks, deploying CHT sync on the MOH Uganda instance. So we're excited about that. That means it actually has a big scale, almost national scale. We are building those dashboards from scratch, and yeah, that's we're excited to be part of that, working with some of our teammates here. The next is also MOH Kenya. In line with the organizational our goals as an organization is to have maximum impact that could be on national scale. So we're also looking at MOH Kenya. It was recently launched ICHIS, which is the CHT instance. So that would be an area of focus that we are looking into, especially since it's not on a national scale. There's a lot of data that is being being input into the system, which also means that pulling the data to these dashboards may become a problem soon. So yeah, I wanted to show how we can actually set up CHT sync locally. We've been able to show the transformation, but we never showed how you could actually set up before. So what you need is just npm. You can install it and then run it locally, and then you'll have it. So I'll share the repository on charts. That's the repository we have. And then I'll just share my screen and show you how to do it. It's actually really simple. So you just run that command. So I'll just move on to my Docker. So as you can see, we don't have any containers running. any container running with the pipeline configuration, that's CHT sync. So I'll just go over to my terminal. We need to install npm. So mine is already there. So I'll just you can just confirm that. Oh, sorry. Yeah, there it is. I already have the 9.64 version. So what I need to do is just run it locally. That's npm run local. Then we can see the magic. So as it starts up, what you'll see here is on line 16, it's pointing to the main branch. So if you create your own branch, you can just come and point yours here and expose the pods as you'd like. So for example, for me, there's a time I wanted to check CouchDB, and I was able to expose this pod here. So yeah, we can see it's already started. The containers have started. So just go back to my Docker, and you could see it's actually here. So it has started a couple of containers. You can see Superset, which is the dashboard. We can see Postgres, CouchDB. We have a data generator here, the VPT, where the transformation is happening, and our interest here is Logstash. So if I click on this, you can see the data being transformed, being copied over. I was able to showcase this a while ago. So the good thing is that there's a listener that you're able to copy data from CouchDB when one of those columns changes every couple of seconds. Or if it's a lot of data, you could actually change it to minutes. But ideally, it will copy over data every couple of seconds. So that's basically it. If you're interested in setting it up, I've shared the repo there. You can just run those two commands in that directory where once you clone that repo, and you should be good. Cool. If you have any questions to ask, you could raise them either on the forum or as an issue on GitHub as well. Any questions? You could unmute yourself, or you could type it on chats.
I wanted to go over the most recent release, which also covers 4.4.1, which is a dot release to fix a bug. So today we're going to be covering replication gains, that is replication performance performance gains we've made. We're also making an upgrade from Couch 2 to Couch 3, and then some of the UI evolutions in the modal dialogues, which Michael mentioned earlier. So this chart I pulled from the documentation for CHT 4.4. And what it does is it breaks down the different components that are measured in synchronization. And the big thing to notice is that the bar on the right is lower. And what this means is that on average, CHT4 is going to synchronize much faster than CHT4.3. The specific optimizations that we've made have been improving the purging caches that are generated so that they're only needed to be made the first time, and then on all subsequent synchronizations, the synchronization is much faster. This actually is true going back for a number of CHT versions. So if you're maybe on 4.0 or have yet to make the jump to the 4.0 branch, while there is a increased complexity in the hosting for CHT4 in terms of going from the single Medic OS image to the multiple Docker containers, every 4.0 release has added in performance gains, and it really makes a big difference. And we've seen this in production. Last call, you may have remembered me presenting the Watchdog graphs showing that as upgrades were made, the stability of the CHT increased. So strongly encourage you to take a look at the CHT 4.4 release, as well as prior ones that have other beneficial gains for synchronizations. We've also made a big jump, speaking of performance upgrades, from Couch 2 to Couch 332. And this is pretty awesome and something that was able to be done more or less transparently because of the multiple containers that we're running that hide away a lot of the complexity of needing to do these upgrades. So some of the improvements are you should generally see a 1.5x for improvement for all calls. And in some specific cases, you'll see that there's a 10x improvement. We also have better shard management, and this will come especially into play for large deployments that are going to be needing to move data around as you look at going to a clustered couch deployment and needing to reallocate the data. And as well, just because we get to get all the benefits of upstream open source changes that have happened to Couch, there's a ton of improved security changes that have been made to Couch. And then, as I mentioned, the care teams has shipped some of their modal changes. So on the left there, you can see the before, and then on the right, you can see the after. And as Michael was mentioning in his presentation, this is just continuing the upgrade to follow the Android material design best practices. And you'll see this come more and more as each new release is made. So while I've mentioned some highlights, and we generally try to pull out the things that will be most interesting to partners, there is always a whole bunch of things that we don't cover. So I encourage you to look at the release notes on the documentation page and click through to anything that you find interesting. And if you have questions about anything, feel free to come over to the forums. We love to help out folks who are curious about how something works or the impacts of something will have on their program when they upgrade. All right. I don't see any questions in chat, but if anyone does have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.